There we go. Okay, I think we are live. Let me just go over to our Facebook group and see if we are live over here, see if it picked up the stream.
All right.
There it is. Over here. Okay, so hello everybody. We're so glad. We're going to get started in just a minute. As you guys are jumping on, go ahead and say hello. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where in the world you are joining us from. If Facebook will not let me invite people anymore. I don't know what's going on. They changed how they do their live videos. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead and tag your friends in the comments below that need to see this live stream today. If you have little kids or big kids, today is going to be a really great session for you. We've been talking all week about homeschool and specifically unschooling. And I know, I think, like a decade ago, if you were homeschooling, that was really rare. But now homeschooling is becoming more and more popular. And I think people are just looking for more alternatives for their kids. And especially in this group, we tend to be a little bit more conscious of our choices and really understanding that each person has a very individual path, and that for some children and for some parents, traditional education isn't the best fit. So I know there was a lot of you guys that were in here that are excited to learn about homeschooling. So we have my friend Sue here today. You've been on this path of homeschooling and education for children for like over 20 years? Yeah, so a long time. She's definitely an expert in this field. So go ahead and say hello. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Okay, and I see Diane in the Facebook group. Hello. So somebody's there because I can pull up the your Facebook.
Yep.
So anyway, okay. I'm Sue Patterson, and I'm an unschooling coach. I help people figure out how to either leave the school system and start on this different path that doesn't have to look like school at all. And, or I help people that have maybe started homeschooling and they've discovered that what they're doing is they're duplicating school. And that was the very thing to get away from. But marketing, is such a push. And then next thing you know, you're buying all these curriculum packages. And I want to stop you before you waste your money. I want you to just be able to think about what do you really want to do? How do you really want to be? And I help families do that all the time. So I have a book called Homeschool Teens where I interviewed 75, I always say kids, but there were 15 to 39, so they weren't really kids. But they talked about what their life was like as a teenager. Because like you said, it's very different now than it was then, but it's been going on for a long time. My kids are 24, 27, and 29, and they were unschooled. Mm-hmm. One of them did, the youngest, of course, the youngest always wants to do a different thing, right? So she went to high school for 1.5 years to be on the drill team and try that out. And that's kind of interesting, too, to see how a kid that was totally unschooled can integrate into the high school if need be. Mm-hmm. And, I remember always thinking, we would have to do serious prep. But we didn't. And so if there's questions about that, because a lot of times people worry if I get off this conveyor belt, how do I get back on if I have to? It's really just fear, but I can also show you some practical things. And that's really kind of my thing, is that I'm all about practical. I'm not really, I don't care if you like the word unschool or don't like the word unschool, if that's too in your face. You're just a parent making the best choice you can for your family and trying to find what works for your kids. So that's where I go.
So what is the difference between like homeschool and the unschool way?
Okay. Oh, yeah. So homeschooling is much more like a school in that you have a teacher and a lesson plan and you're deciding what's going to happen and you're kind of on a schedule, and it can be flexible, but you're pretty much trying to stay with grade levels and stay lined up with the school. Unschooling, you don't worry about that anymore. Unschooling is about knowing that kids, and all human beings really, are hardwired to learn. They're hardwired to be curious. And what we noticed, and actually educational research supports it, it's just that it doesn't get to be implemented in school when you have a 1-to-30 ratio. But when you can follow the curiosity of the child, they will go so much deeper and so much broader than if they were just forced to go on a certain little plan that you made for them. So I always think of it as like homeschooling is like a road with a whole bunch of speed bumps on it, and unschooling is a road with no speed bumps. So you can just dive into what you need. So unschooling is no quizzes, no lesson plans, no grade levels, and the parents are more of a resource finder and a guide, and you're really listening to what your child is interested in and helping them pursue that to whatever level, because one thing really does lead to another all the time.
If you guys are having questions as we're going through today's topic, go ahead and post them in the comments and we'll get to them, because I know that as we go through it, I'm sure you guys are going to have some brilliant questions for Sue to answer. So how do you, I'm sure one of the common things people come to you with is that we're so used to certain metrics and performance and making sure that we keep up. My daughter's in a dual language school, and I remember that was one of the things that people would ask me, like, how is she going to keep up with English if she's going to learn Spanish and all this kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's one of the things everybody asks. What do you usually tell them when they come to you with those kinds of things?
It varies. First, legally, it varies because some states have way more rules than other states. So, like I live in Texas, and homeschooling is considered a private school here, which means everybody's kind of hands off. Private schools get to do whatever they want to do. And there's a general thing of 5 core areas. They want to make sure that your child knows things like math and reading and stuff like that. And but nobody's checking it. There's not a resource, but there's no allocated funds for somebody to come out and do that. And some states, though, do have tests, and some states have people that come out and talk to you and see how things are going. Not as many, because it's funding, And, but what I like to explain is that how I know they're on track, so to speak, is that I'm talking with them. I'm living with them. I know what they know. And then, surprisingly, they would always have something. They would come in, did you know that? And I'm like, no, how did you know that? And because the internet, they can dive into something, and next thing you know, a YouTube video took them to somewhere, and suddenly they know about Pearl Harbor. And you're like, oh, okay. And it's shocking. Things even like cartoons would often have some kind of a little reality thing in it. And when you don't have a kid that's so tightly controlled, they can be like, I wonder what that's about. It's Animaniacs, and they're talking about Magellan. Who's Magellan? And then next thing you know, one thing leads to another. So I don't really worry about whether they're on track, because we're on a different track. It's not, I got to make sure 7th grade knows 7th grade. When we first started, I went to the Scope and Sequence part of the World Book Encyclopedia website, and I printed out all the grades. And so I had this giant notebook in English. These are the things that they would know for 3rd grade. These are the things they would know for 4th grade. And what I discovered was, after like a year of tediously doing that, is that sometimes they knew something from 7th grade, and sometimes they were still in 1st grade. And did I really want to sacrifice that really deep knowledge of the 7th grade so they could get? I didn't. And so we just, pretty soon we realized that wasn't really necessary to keep up with. But it helped me in the beginning, because then I could see it doesn't take long to show them about Roman numerals. You can walk through Target and look at clocks and see, oh, look, that's called a Roman numeral. Okay, we don't even need a quiz on Friday for that. We're just having this really engaged life.
So let me ask you, and I'm sure you've heard this too, what do you, when parents come to you and they're worried about, okay, so if I unschool my kid their entire education, and now we get to graduate, I'm sure they just take a test to graduate, right? Like whatever that state test is to say you graduate high school?
You don't have to take tests.
Okay. So you don't, do they get a GED? No. Okay. How do they enter into this real world where we have certain ideas that like people have to have like high school diplomas and you have to, can you go to college if you want to go to college? Or?
Lots of times what happens is the kids take community college classes during their teen years. And so once you've had a couple community college classes, nobody even cares what you did before that. That suddenly like overshadows that this shows you can be in a class, follow this, make a B, and move on. And so most of the time people take a community college class. And what that really amounts to is kind of like dual enrollment. You know, in schools they have dual enrollment for high schoolers that you can have an English class count for community college and count for high school. And so our guys, it's counting for community college. And so they do that. And as far as getting jobs, usually jobs come because they had jobs before. So my kids all got jobs at 16 and worked at Barnes & Noble or worked at the theater or worked at various places. And there's just a little box that says, where did you go to school? And they write homeschool. And did you graduate? Check mark yes. That's it. There's not anybody that's going to say, show me that diploma. Because how often have you ever had to show that?
Right. Yeah, sometimes we get so stuck in like what everybody else does and what like this dogma that we've like bought out to, and it's just only way.
It's conditioning that all through all those years we were told, get that diploma, stay in school, get that diploma. That diploma is everything. That diploma is nothing. And it just it's that carrot on the stick that they use to keep you going.
Would you say that your kids are happier without the pressure?
I think that they traveled, they got to do the things they wanted to do. I had 3 completely different kids. So my oldest went as an exchange student to Japan at 16, and he wouldn't have done that if he was trying to meet all of the school requirements. They had jobs, they got to pursue whatever they wanted. So he was all about other cultures and community service. And so then he ended up going to college and being in the Peace Corps and doing all that kind of stuff. But it was because he was getting this opportunity to practice things all through his growing up years. Things that he liked, not things that just somebody said, hey, you better make sure you know this. Because we've spent a lot of time on things that we didn't ever really need to know. And so you have a little guy right there.
Move. I got a 2 or a 3-year-old that's demanding milk. So y'all are gonna go through my house with me for just a minute.
And so I'll talk while you're getting set up. And so my second child was all about acting. So she just did tons of theater, one show after another, took dance classes, took voice classes, ended up being in a movie at 17 just because she was pursuing the things she wanted to do. And she didn't have to be one of those kids in the back of the theater trying to crank out a little algebra homework, you know, because the rehearsal week was going until 11 o'clock at night. She could sleep in the next day and be rested. And then my youngest, who was the most, into like what is everybody else doing. So she was into pop culture, she was into makeup, into hair, into all that kind of stuff. And so she, of course, wanted to try out high school at some point. And so she did for a year and a half and made the drill team and discovered that, it really isn't like a Lizzie McGuire movie, like she thought it was going to be. And and then went to cosmetology school and is a hairstylist. And something that I think is interesting, and my kids don't mind me sharing, is that my two oldest have degrees. My oldest has a bachelor's degree, and my second child has an associate degree, and my youngest just has her cosmetology license. And I know that we all kind of are a little bit of like, we don't see that as hugely successful as a college degree. And I got to tell you that my youngest, with her cosmetology license, makes more money than my two college graduates combined, and has no debt. Doesn't have any of that. So you do kind of, sometimes you need to reframe in your head what success is. And so where you had asked earlier, were they happy? They were super happy with their childhood. And they're regular 20-something-year-olds with the aches that everybody has as a young adult. They don't get to escape that. But they know who they are. They know what they like. They don't have a lot of the baggage, that sometimes comes when you've been, just kind of taken from place to place and somebody else is telling you what to do. And they don't have that. So there's a little long answer for that.
Loved everything you had to say, especially how we have to redefine success and what that means. And I think, as I start to get older and I have little kids and stuff, and I kind of look at them, and I guess in one part I'm like, I'm not going to be the best mom for them if they want to go and do this like really higher education and be like really studious, because that's not really that important to me, right. Even though the world around us says that it's so important. Mm-hmm. And I guess if you wanted to be maybe a doctor, it's very, very important, or some skill that you have to go through that. But I'm thinking now as I get older that it's more important to find things that you truly love to do and build a life around that. And then that creates the success instead of the other way around. I don't think
that choosing this kind of unconventional path necessarily closes any doors. If you want to be a doctor, you're still going to be a doctor because that's what you want to do. And you'll just get an opportunity to kind of plug in at different places in the community to see what do you really like. How could that be? And maybe you'll be a paramedic first, or maybe who knows what path. It'll just be an unconventional path. Or a whole lot of kids just end up doing community college, and then they start in college, and if they want to go on to some higher level thing, then they just do it. So that's no doors are really closed. Actually, more are open.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think it's a really important conversation. I know, and I hate to kind of bring this up, but in particular where I live, since like the beginning of the school year, they have like, for some reason, like suicide rates are like through the roof right now. And last year there was a child out of Newport Beach that had written this letter. He ended up taking his life, but it was all about the pressure that he felt every single day to have to, like, there was like an expectation put on him to like measure up all the time. And that's a lot of pressure to put on kids. And I think sometimes we don't honor just living I guess I could use the word mediocre, but not mediocre in a bad way, but just like,
maybe just authentic.
Yeah, like just know
you really are. If you're an introvert, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Just, think about how schools are about extroverts and introverts. That if you're popular, you're probably extroverted. You're probably. What if you're not? What if you're not a less than person? You're going to probably have a career that you don't have to do tons of things with managing 45,000 people. There are many, many careers out there. But you're conditioned all those years to think, I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at that. And that's sad to me, So it doesn't have to be like that. I guess that's all my message is that there are options, and they are good options. They're not less than options.
Yeah. What does a typical day look like? If you're like an unschooling family, what does a typical day look like for you and your kids?
It's going to depend on what the kids are interested in and their ages. Because my kids, they're, different times we would go, and other times we were like, not so much. And if I had more introvert, and my kids are now in their 20s. We didn't have YouTube We didn't have stuff that kids could be like, oh, I don't really want to go. I think I just want to stay home. I want you to. Which, not the end of the world. So I think that what a typical day, what you would do is you'd have a big calendar for your week. You'd see where your have-tos. You know, we've got a park date on Wednesday. We've got dentist appointments on Thursday. Somebody's coming over on Monday. So you get your have-tos, because people are always like, oh, there's no structure. There's structure. You know, we got to get to the grocery store. We got to get to the library. This month we may be going to the museum because some exhibit's coming through. Or maybe we're going to go on a hike because the weather's supposed to be nice. It's flexible. So that's the real advantage of all of it, is that you just look at your week and decide how you want to spend it. And you don't have to have a lot of pressure to do the things that aren't fitted, you know, and all the arbitrary stuff's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that, you know, the kids can spend a lot of time really developing things that they really, truly enjoy. Because sometimes it's hard if you're in a traditional school and then, like you were saying, they have extracurricular activities. Mm-hmm. It's like to fit all of that in, the dance and the music, it's like crazy. But if that's part of their unschooling, like, regimen or program,
right. That becomes their big thing, you know, and
right.
The acting and the singing and the dancing. My house, there was so much music, you know, between Broadway show tunes coming out of one room and heavy metal coming out of another and Britney Spears coming out of another. You know, it was just whatever they were interested in, and that's kind of, they got to dive into it. But there's just so, you know, I think people always think, what will we do? Oh my gosh. And so I did create something this year called a monthly unschooling guide. It is like $5 a month to Patreon, and I break it down into 3 different things. One is about parents, and one is about kids, and one is about your home. What can you do to make the environment more unschooly for this month? What are some good things to read to help undo some of that thinking about your parenting, or about how kids learn, or how you learn, or what's going on there? Because there's this word called deschooling, where you have to undo some of that thinking of what is learning, what do you have to do. And those have-tos aren't nearly as overshadowing as they are when you're in school. You've got a lot of have-tos. But so the monthly unschooling guide goes through all of that, and it's been really helpful for people but even to like keep track of things like, what are your kids interested in? What are they talking about? How could you help them go a little more in that direction? And when we're so busy doing the school stuff, you don't have time to do that. And then sometimes if you have a kid that's really trying to excel in school, they may shelve their stuff so they can get their A. Mm-hmm. I think that's like the conditioning of future people pleasers.
Right.
You know, and it's fine to do well, but when you start to shelve your interests, I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, so it's really hard to do that. I mean, it can be done, but harder. Mm-hmm.
How do you, somebody asked in the group, Christina asked, how do you make sure that you handle, like, the things that they, quote unquote, need to learn from, like, a math or a grammar perspective? That's about 10, I would be willing to assume most kids aren't like, yes, I want to really learn about grammar, or yes, I want to really learn about math, but they are real life skills. How do you handle that kind of stuff?
I think,
or do you?
Grammar, to me, is handled by how we speak. How do you talk to them? How do you help them write a thank you note to grandma? How do you, talking about things that happen in movies where you could say, look and see how the dialect is different. What does that make you think about them? And you're just having a little conversation with them. It doesn't take sitting down and doing a bunch of spelling worksheets. And, you know, one of the things about texting and even gaming, a lot of kids learn to read and learn to spell correctly based upon texting, because it's going to show you, no, that's not right. And the more, we've seen that the more kids read, whether it's books or online or wherever, the more familiar they are with the correct spelling. They may not know exactly what the right spelling is, but they know that's not right. And that's how we all learn to spell better, from a more natural way. So we don't really do that. And you know what's interesting, and then I'll talk about math, but my son, when we first started, I kind of got swept away with marketing, and we did something called Calvert, which was school in the box, which was so crazy since that wasn't what we wanted. But by the time I finished reading all the catalogs, I was convinced that was what we needed. And so we lived in Alaska, and they wanted him to write about this little red car. It was a convertible, and there are no little red convertibles in Alaska. And we just had moose at the window, and he wanted to write about the moose coming to the window. And the teacher that was assigned, she's like, no, that's not good because the letters don't connect correctly the way we want them to. I'm like, you know, you're going to take all the fun out of writing if you keep going like this. So we got rid of Calvert. We had a little ceremonial breaking of the pencils. We're not writing her way. And and then he never wrote a book report, and he never wrote a research paper. He did a little bit of writing for his Boy Scout Awards badges. He had to write a little bit for that. And he made Fimo clay representations from things that he had read, because he kind of liked doing that. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know, we have not done a single thing. And so he went to community college, and at community college you have to do this assessment. So they check you in reading and writing and math. And so when it came to the writing, you have to write a persuasive paper. He knew at this point, by the time he was 17 or 18, he knew how to write. He had done enough of that. But he didn't really know about how to write a paper. You know, I'd already showed him this as a sentence. He's read enough to know about punctuation and capitals and stuff like that. And so, and way back when he was little, we used to do story dictation. And so he would start to tell me stuff, and I would type it. And okay, what's he wearing? How does he look? What's the skyline? You know, I would help him kind of flesh out a story, you know. And so he kind of understood all of that, and he loved telling stories. So we get to the persuasive thing, and in Texas, the assessment tests are all about school stuff. So this time it was no pass, no play, which is a law here, which means if you don't get a C average during your week, you can't play in the football game on Friday night. Or basketball.
Total Texas.
Oh my gosh, we are so serious about our sports. And we even incorporated into
the state testing.
Isn't that crazy? And so he knew that law, because we talked about things like that. We'd watch the news together, or we'd read something in Newsweek, or so we had lots of conversations. So he wrote, well, you know, it could be the only thing the kid is good at. It could be, you know, I understand that you've got to be able to have a certain level of accountability to the parents because they pay taxes, and you need to do the right stuff for school. Well, that's a big old F when it comes to persuasive papers. You can't do both sides.
Right.
And so he came home, he's like, well, that didn't work. Like, well, I can tell you how. And so you do an intro, and you pick a side, and you pick 3 supporting arguments, and then you do a closing, which is kind of the flip of the intro. Use a couple words like incidentally, spell them right. It'll jack up your score a little bit when it comes time to grading it. So the next time his thing was school uniforms, pro or con. And so I went pro school uniforms because I could think of 3 reasons people would want them. And he passed it. And what's the funniest part of all of it is, as he's taking classes, he ends up with a degree in journalism.
Oh, wow.
He wanted to be a travel writer. And he was magna cum laude. So he only had like 2 B's the whole time in college. But it was, he didn't have all that baggage of, I hate writing, mom's making me write. I saw a curriculum one time called Writing Through the Tears. And I'm like, oh, that's so awful. But there's a lot of crying when people are like being forced to write. And you can, people complain, they're like, well, they write these really horrible things because, I don't mean like horrible as in they're bad, but they're like short and 3-letter words, and it's not really a lot of effort. Because when you tie creative writing to handwriting, you suddenly don't want to write as much if you're not writing. So there's my little story about writing and how people can go ahead and learn it when they're ready, and they don't have to have all those years prepping. And that works the same way. You've got opportunities to learn about sales and percentages and bank accounts and credit cards and real life math. And you want to paint a room and you need to know how many cans of paint. Or you're going to go on a trip and how long is it going to take to get there? Do we have to, what do we have to do? So it's all real world stuff. You don't have to do it that linear, learn it like this way that we're convinced of.
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking back, we can look back at our own educations and see for how many years we studied and had to learn certain things, and there isn't really any real life application to them.
Well, for instance, my daughter that did all dancing and theater, and when she went to community college, she bombed the math. If she had worked at Barnes & Noble, she understood percentages, she understood all kinds of stuff, but she didn't test that well. She got a little panicky about testing, so she bombed all 3 areas: the reading, the writing, and the math, primarily. And so we stepped away from it for a while. We came back the next year, and we went to talk to the counselor, and we're like, okay, what do we need to do? And she says, you don't even have to retake the test. We have developmental classes. We can just plug you in where you are, and then you can learn it. She's like, oh my gosh, yes. She goes, Mom, I traded 3 semesters for 12 years. And she was all caught up. And she's like, I'm still waiting for someone to ask me about the quadratic equation. I know it. No one cares.
Right. I love it. They're probably so happy. So much happier than having to struggle over things.
And they feel really good. That community college really helps them feel like, all right, I do know something. And they're sitting in a classroom full of kids that sat for 12 years. And they still have to take the developmental classes. So they have to do their life. And now they're doing this. And they'll move forward with whatever they need.
So if parents are entertaining the idea to go over to homeschooling, particularly going over to unschooling, and this is more like the free-range parenting, we're going to go unschooling route, what would you suggest? What would be those first couple steps that you would tell them to go?
I think first I would try to find a support group in your area to make sure that you have your legal stuff figured out correctly. And talk with unschoolers. And over at unschoolingmomtomom.com, we have a page that has all sorts of Facebook groups for different states and different countries and different cities, and so that you can get connected. Because I think that that's really good. I have a PDF that I give out to people that's like 10 steps to get started. And so that's something that you can access at that website too. But primarily, check with the locals, see what's happening legally in your state, and then see what's happening, it's just under the radar where all the homeschoolers live. And they're going and doing things and having park days and soccer days and all kinds of stuff. And you don't necessarily even know about it if you're not tapped into it. So then that'll help you get connected there. And if you're feeling really unsure, I can talk to people. I have a coaching program that you can call and we can just talk for 30 minutes, of knock out a couple of your big questions that you might have. And then I have a membership group too that if you feel kind of isolated and you'd like to have more people around, other parents that are on the same path, and then when we get together on Wednesdays on a coaching call with everybody on Zoom, so it's kind of Brady Bunch style, and that way you don't feel so alone and people get to ask questions and share answers and feel more connected.
I would think that would be very valuable, having your support system, especially when you're going to go this route, which is somewhat counterculture for most people, because I'm sure it's like the pressure from family. I have kids too. It's like every decision you make, everybody wants to judge it, right? And so especially your family wants to judge all the decisions. So I would think that you would probably get a lot of pressure from, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
What do you, yeah, I could see that.
It's part of also kind of growing up as a parent when you realize I'm not the kid anymore. I'm the one that makes the decisions. I'm their advocate. Just like my parents were mine, I have to step out of that grown daughter role and be the parent. My kids and their choices matter more than whether I have approval. And there's a little growing up phase that it takes a while sometimes to do for some of us. And it's doable, and it's really great because you've got this great little child that is ready to grow and do stuff, and then you get an opportunity to have these adventures with them.
That's a really beautiful experience. How do you do it with multiple kids? Because I would think you'd be very busy.
It's kind of like a Saturday every day, or a summer vacation that never ends. How do you manage them then? You manage, and you.
That's how. Just so you know, in this house, that sounds like torture. It's summer vacation that never ends. Because I love it when we get on summer vacation, and the first handful of weeks are amazing. And then we get towards the end where it's getting time to go back to school, and I'm like, oh my God, I need a break.
Well, and I think that there's something about knowing that it's ending that shifts your gears.
Probably.
And so I think that if you think of that front end of it, what if it could stay that front end? What was working there? And when you remove the pressure of going back and are we ready and are you ready? Have you forgotten everything? All those things. When you get rid of that, it might not feel so bad.
Right, and you probably adjust to just a new normal. I'm sure you appreciate all the opportunities that you get to have with your kids. So that's awesome. So if people want to go and join, you have unschoolingmomtomom.com. So unschoolingmomtomom.com. We'll pop it in the comments for you guys. And then if they want to work one-on-one with you, do they go to your website and contact you there?
Unschooling Mom to Mom over, I think, it's on one of the navigational bars. Or SuePatterson.com. It has that there. And then I have a weekly email list that I send out, and it always has ways to connect and things that is going on and things that are going on in the unschooling community. So, and all of those things are at those two websites. So I'm happy to help people figure out how they could do this if this is something they're interested in. But I have a lot of people that just want to talk for 30 minutes about maybe. My goal is not to evangelize for unschooling or anything. My goal is just to help you figure out what would really work for you. How could you do things a little differently and maybe have a happier life with your kids? So I'm happy to talk to people like that. I'm not going to make you feel bad if you don't want to unschool in the end. It's okay. Because it's not for everybody. It's a full-time thing. But but it's an option. And it's not as wacky as people think. And the kids really are going to be prepared. And so when you worry about, I'm going to ruin them, no, probably not.
Yeah, I think it's more important to take care of their heart than it is to take care of their mind.
Because the rest of it is going to fall into line.
They'll figure it out.
You've got a full encyclopedia in your phone. And you don't really need to memorize. Far better to have a really great connection with the parent, so that the parent hasn't had to be a school warden the whole time. And, when you're connected with them in a better way, you have a lot more likelihood of being able to share your wisdom because they're going to listen to you. Whereas if you have been the warden, they're not listening to you. We all remember what that was like. You're not necessarily share everything with somebody that's going to be super judgy. And you have this opportunity to connect with them at this other level. And I'm not saying that you can't connect with them at that level, but if they're in school, but they're gone a lot of hours. And
they are
super tired.
and they're crabby and they need to eat. And
you get them at the worst time of day. You're like, gosh, I think they should all start at noon so I can have the good time.
Right. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome. Well, guys, go and join Sue's group. Go check out Unschooling Mom to Mom. Reach out to her if you guys have questions. So she'll help you navigate just whatever your journey ends up being, be it unschooling, be it a form of homeschooling, or even traditional school, but maybe you want to just incorporate some of the thoughts and belief behind unschooling into if your kids go to regular school, maybe you're just incorporating that kind of mindset when they come home and in their development with you.
So I have Instagram, Unschooling Mom to Mom too, and then Facebook, a Facebook page that's Unschooling Mom to Mom. So that's easy ways to just kind of keep it in the front of your mind.
So much stuff. And there's a bunch of free resources in the group as well. So go check them out. Thank you so much for coming in to share your work. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Good. And then next week we are coming back. We're going to be talking about living every day as a vacation. We have Josie Marshall's coming in. She wrote a book called, let me look it up. It's called Pura Vida or something. Give me a hot minute, everybody. I forgot the name of her book. I was just reading about it. But she teaches, Pura Vida book, the Pura Vida book, and it's all about how you can live every day in that state of bliss and how you can live every day as a vacation. So we're going to be talking about that next week with Josie Marshall. So thanks so much for joining us, guys. We hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye.